The chapter begins with a flashback from over 100 years ago, finally revealing why Loki always keeps his eyes covered. The cover page shows Yamato happily reuniting with Kiku Nojo, now the daimyo of Ringo, with the Moonflower OAS also present. The main story shifts to the past, showing Dory and Brogy as children alongside their friend Prince Harold. The trio, who would later become legends, bond while tending to their bruises. Prince Harold wields a massive hammer, and Loki, following in his father's footsteps, chooses the same weapon. At this time, Harold is too young for his facial tattoo. Due to his ancient giant blood, Harold's size and strength are extraordinary, and his status in his homeland is unmatched. These traits lead to him becoming a proud and unruly youth. As a teenager, King Harold acts with little concern, looking down on anyone not from Elbaf, whom he considers weak and insignificant. Even something as trivial as flicking a booger carries the force of cannon fire, and his guards always agree with whatever he says. One day, King Harold and his men visit the Kingdom of Bunt in the New World. There, a circus claims to have captured a giant from Elbaf. A horned, caged female giant growls at the spectators below. Seeing this from his binoculars, King Harold becomes enraged. With giants already infamous during that era, such a display is provocative. The Elbaf giants quickly destroy the circus and free the giant. However, the woman doesn't recognize them and reveals that her horns are merely decorative. She is not from Elbaf. Despite this, the giants reassure her she doesn't owe them gratitude. When Harold introduces himself as the king of Elbaf and speaks of his duty to uphold their honor, she slaps him across the face. His crew is stunned. Something like this has never happened before. Though they are his guards, Harold's strength is such that protecting him has never been necessary. The unexpected slap leaves Harold shaken. The giant woman demands an apology for the harm caused during the raid. When Harold scoffs at her desire to return to the humans, whom he dismisses as little dolls, she raises a trembling fist and beats him down. It is revealed that the humans rescued her when she was near death, and their kindness helped her recover and survive. The insult about little dolls cuts too deep, and she pulls the king in close, telling him that being born big was just a twist of fate, not a sign of superiority. She calls him an arrogant disgrace for thinking he's better than humans. From her view, the savagery of Elbaf giants damages the reputation of giants everywhere. Her words strike the young king deeply. Though a ruler, Harold is only 15 in giant years, and this moment becomes a turning point. He swallows his pride and lets her go back to the humans. Once she returns, she helps them rebuild what was destroyed. Despite her size, the humans treat her with kindness and gratitude. Harold's guards, watching from afar, begin to wonder if they should take their leave. King Harold, instead of leaving, orders his men to help the humans rebuild their miniature city. The reconstruction goes quickly, and in the process, the giants discover that human construction techniques are very different from their own. The humans even offer to teach them their methods. Their use of spices and the way they flavor food stands out, and their fabrics are impressive too. Coming from a culture not built on brute strength and plunder like the giants, humans instead excel by developing their intellect and skills. The giant woman extends a hand to the hesitant king and brings him before the human king of Bunt, where Harold bows his head in apology. With the tension resolved, several human children climb onto the giant king, getting closer to him than his own subjects ever dared. That night, giants and humans share in the Na Shuffle dance. Through the experience, King Harold realizes that destroying anything in the world is a waste. Eventually, the foreign giant departs with him and joins him on his travels. They meet all sorts of humans along the way, and instead of confronting them, Harold welcomes them with a smile and a raised white flag. She reveals that she was born on Samwanai, an island in the South Blue, and ended up at sea. When Harold asks if she crossed the blood-soaked serpent, she recognizes he means the red line and confirms she can't return home. Over time, King Harold transforms into a generous man, helping people simply because he can. He invites the foreign giant to Elbaf, assuring her that they aren't as savage as she once believed. She agrees, admitting she may have judged them too harshly. It's clear that Harold is in love, a feeling visibly evident and, considering his former self, unsettling to some. After about a year, he returns home a changed man, aiming to inspire the same growth in his people. He declares it's time for Elbaf to atone for its many sins, a decision that confuses and concerns the citizens. As king, he resolves to spend more time abroad, hoping to reconcile with other nations and learn from cultures beyond their own. He believes Elbaf will benefit from this global understanding. When a herald mentions that the wild Dory and Brogy will never change, Harold defends them, explaining that they've always been different. Long before his transformation, they treated humans with honor and respect. Some begin to question whether their warrior traditions can endure. The king acknowledges that if those customs make others feel threatened, they may need to evolve. Gravers Bojija and Zaba are intrigued by the king's changes and seem to have been born old. The king's partner sees clearly that both Harold and Elbaf are blessed. Harold sets out on many journeys after this, once trading a massive bottle of giant booze for several human kegs, one marked with a skull, clearly their strongest. His goal becomes building strong diplomatic ties and deep cultural understanding. At first, he views these efforts as elaborate hostage negotiations, but Ida is there to guide him. Ultimately, their mission is international cooperation, a journey that spans nearly a quarter of a century. Later, King Harold and Ida had a child together. The king was thrilled at the thought of becoming a father, but his joy was quickly dampened by the traditionalist elders of Elbaf. They refused to recognize the marriage, declaring that only those of pure blood could be accepted into the royal family. Bound by long-standing customs, Harold had to let go of the dream of a united family. Fortunately, Ida was understanding. She accepted that such matters were rooted in culture and that emotions alone wouldn't be enough to change those beliefs. However, the giants from the eastern fishing village had grown fond of Ida and the baby, offering her a permanent home on Elbaf. She accepted, allowing her son, Hadrudin, to remain near his father. Not long after, King Harold was introduced to his culturally appropriate bride, Estrid, from Alcohol Village in northern Elbaf. She carried the noble lineage of ancient giants and considered herself a student of the earthwind arts, what seems to be a spiritual or elemental discipline among the giants. The first thing Estrid said to King Harold was that she was fated to love him for the rest of her life. The second thing she said was that he should forget about the Eastern woman he had loved and stood beside for over 20 years, as well as the child he had with her. Harold, far more composed than he once was, responded with unease rather than hostility. Estrid claimed that King Harold's spirit was leaking out due to the room's eastern alignment. She immediately ordered the windows to be shut before the king could respond. Without pause, she instructed the guards to remove a particular mirror, saying it was placed in a lethal 5-star configuration connected to the eastern energy. Later, Estrid introduced the king to Azura, the horse of good fortune. The beast, a gift from her family, was said to bring him luck. Azura had 8 legs and a mane resembling flaming pillars, making it an anomaly even by Elbaf standards. Estrid's behavior quickly shifted. She ordered all the castle's gold and jewels to be moved into her quarters, claiming that the king's surroundings should be focused on earth and wind energies, concepts she already practiced. She further declared that from now on, all meals served to the king and queen would only be accepted on silver platters. Estrid's demanding nature left a strong impression, and her popularity was not high. About 70 years ago, rough seas made travel between islands incredibly difficult. It was Elbaf's advancement in navigation that changed the course of global travel, a legacy that directly ties to Road, the navigator of the new giant warrior pirates. King Harold often returned from his voyages with stories of distant lands, including Fishman Island. He spoke of Prince Neptune's birth and how fishmen, merfolk, and other sea creatures gathered in celebration. Then, 63 years ago, while the king was away at sea, Queen Estrid gave birth to their son. She named him Loki, a name she had previously discussed with the king. Excited to meet her child, Estrid approached the crib, only to recoil in horror at the sight of the baby's face. Loki's eyes were unlike anything she had seen. Overcome by fear and disgust, she rejected the infant completely, refusing to believe he could be her child. Estrid ordered the servants to report that the baby hadn't survived. She called Loki a cursed and unacceptable monster due to his appearance, which was simply a natural combination of traits from his ancient-blooded parents. Along with the ancestral horns, Loki also had distinctive eyes, something not understood at the time. When the infant reached out, no one answered. The queen seized him and, in a panic, threw the newborn into the realm of the dead. From that moment on, she forbade any mention of his existence. Sometime later, Estrid began gathering all her valuables, preparing to return to her village and vowing never to give birth again. But a guard delivered grim news. Something was coming back from the realm of the dead. Enraged by the implication, the queen refused to listen. Loki had survived. He returned covered in blood, snow, and tears, having climbed the Atom Tree after slaying a titanic beast. Upon hearing that her abandoned child was alive and approaching, Estrid collapsed from poor health. From her bed, she ordered the guards to eliminate him, claiming Loki would one day kill his father. Her paranoia and religious zeal had driven her to madness. Meanwhile, King Harold remained unaware of any of this. Frustrated by how often his diplomatic efforts had been blocked by the world government, he began to question why nations couldn't simply be free, a belief that carried significant risk. Elsewhere, Ida was a kind and gentle mother to Hadrudin. She reminded him that Loki was his younger brother and asked if he wanted to meet him. But Hadrudin, unwilling to accept a sibling born of a different mother, refused. Unlike when she confronted Harold, Ida couldn't bring herself to scold her son, even when he said cruel things. From then on, every misfortune that struck Elbaf was blamed on what came to be known as Loki's curse.